For Tennessee to pull off the win against Georgia, the Vols are going to have to fix this one aspect to their offense. Let's get into it. I'm Paige Dower. This is the sports page on Full Disclosure. Now, it really is just a small sample size of 2 games, so I'm not ready to say it's a trend yet. After week 3, if it happens, it'll certainly be a trend, and it'll be even more of a growing concern. But they had 4 drops against ETSU, 2 against Syracuse. You compound that with the amount of incompletions that happened despite the ball being in the catch radius, could be an aspect to their offense that gets exploited against Georgia. So when time is of the essence, Joey Aguilar and the offense have got to find a way to get on the same page. And there is some time left. Not a lot, because Georgia comes here this weekend, where that time together is kind of showing that maybe sometimes that's really all you need is just extra time together. I think that's why we hear Chris Brassel say that he doesn't mind that there's not been a rotation in the wide receiver room through the first 2 games, because that's allowed them to build their chemistry, to build their connection with Joey Aguilar. We've already kind of seen that come to fruition with Mike Matthews. Didn't have the best game against Syracuse, wasn't heavily targeted, but he was against ETSU. He caught all 6 of his targets from Joey Aguilar, even had a really nice touchdown catch as well, where he really kind of went up and got his with a lot of traffic in the area, one being his own man and then another ETSU guy. The other person who did not have a very good game in the week 2 matchup was Deshaun Bishop. He has got to be a viable option for Joey Aguilar against Georgia. He was responsible for 2 of the drops in week 2. So he's got to find a way to get on the same page with Joey. I know a couple of the times it happened when Joey had some velo on his passes and it really just popped right out of his hands. So I'm not sure if it's, he's got to put gloves on, or he's just got to get back on the jugs machine and maybe catch some passes that are a little bit higher in the miles per hour category. But he has to be a viable option for Tennessee. But at the end of the day, one thing is for certain: ball security is a heavy emphasis for Tennessee this week.
That comes in the form of the guy that has the ball in his hands, as far as our skill players securing it.
That last part leads to this. A few times, and maybe most of the time, when Joey Aguilar's passes would fall incomplete, despite it being in catch radius, the ball was just a little too high. It wasn't anything that they couldn't get their hands on, because it would go right through their hands. And that's what made those types of incompletions a little bit more frustrating, a little bit more puzzling, because, again, it's in the catch radius. Why aren't they getting it? And it's not like he's throwing these ball with any crazy velocity and power behind them. So there's a disconnect either on timing or just in his delivery of the football to his intended receiver. We actually saw it a couple of times with Braylon Staley. We saw it, I think it was the second drive of the game. It was 2nd and 6 for Tennessee. It was a play fake by Aguilar. He goes over the middle, really threads the needle too, and it just goes right through the hands of Braylon Staley, and that could have been a really big play. They go back to him later in the game, and it's a 1st and goal situation, and Braylon Staley is really heavily guarded by the ETSU defender, and they want the defensive pass interference because the ball is just, again, a little too high. Maybe Braylon could have jumped up a little bit more to make a catch, but again, it looked like that ETSU defender was kind of pulling on his hip, so he didn't have maybe enough strength or what have you to go up and get the ball. And unfortunately for Staley too, it's now a couple of times where maybe it kind of did look like defensive pass interference and he just doesn't get the call. So if that ends up being the trend, the only solution is that Braylon Staley, he just needs to get a little bit stronger, needs to have a little bit more effort on those plays, knowing that he's going to be heavily guarded. And Joey Aguilar has to be more accurate in his throws to his receivers. Now, I think in that situation, maybe you would want it to be a little high because he was so tightly guarded that you'd rather it fall incomplete with an overthrow than for it to be a little short and it gets picked off. But I also think what was interesting about that play, and I think it was a lot by design, Joey did not run at all in the game against ETSU. He did in week 1. I think a lot of that had to be by design, to force him to stay in the pocket, to really look downfield, to get in the habit of stretching the field vertically with these passes, and that could be slowing down through his progression, slowing down his eyes so that he's not throwing with so much anxiousness behind him, because part of the time if you're throwing with anxiousness and you've got really high energy, sometimes those balls are a little high. They're not sailing by any means. They are just a little high, and I think getting into the habit of being more decisive in the types of throws and what he's seeing that the defenses are giving him, I think will help him a lot getting ready for Georgia, but it certainly has to start with how Joey is delivering the football.
It's the quarterback taking care of it in the pass game, being decisive and reading things the right way.
Because those drops and incompletions can absolutely be drive killers. There's not going to be a ton of opportunities, I don't think, the rest of the way where we're going to see Tennessee with 15 or so possessions or where they'll dominate the time of possession by 10 or so minutes. We could look to the last 3 meetings against Georgia where Tennessee's averaged like 10 and a half possessions, and they haven't won the time of possession battle either. And I wouldn't say it's because, Tennessee has this up-tempo offense and they're really productive in their drives. It's kind of the contrary to that. We could look to the last couple of meetings, specifically if we want to go back to 2023. That's the last time that they were at home. Georgia was pretty effective in their third down opportunities. They were 9 of 13. Tennessee was not. They were 2 of 11. So being able to correct the mistakes when it comes to incompletions, but also be able to do that, in the later downs in these drives to keep drives alive will be vital for Tennessee's overall success in this game. But it starts with Joey being able to be decisive, to maintain his composure in the pocket, for the wide receivers to go out there and help elevate the quarterback by maybe occasionally making a couple of tough catches. But it also always starts with all 11 getting together, as Josh Heupel says, and executing on blocks.
We could always finish our blocks better. And I know me personally, I missed the block and I hated myself for it. But just little plays like that, and like you said, once we get in the coverage play, those plays make a difference. It's all in the margins, so you got to hone in on those and go back in the film room, clean it up.
I'm VFL Chris Brown. Experience the VW brand proudly being produced in the great state of Tennessee. Harper Volkswagen is a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. Go Vols!
For Tennessee to have success against Georgia, they can't afford to have like half of their possessions end in punts because they were not able to execute in the pass game, especially in late down situations. So a lot of that, of course, will come down to ball security. It'll come from Joey Aguilar being decisive when he decides to throw it, being accurate with the football, for maybe the wide receivers having to go make some tough catches to elevate the offensive side of the ball, and of course all 11 really working in unison. It'll be a really tight game for Tennessee. I know Georgia maybe hasn't looked their best the first couple of weeks, but it's a rivalry matchup. So you can almost put that through the wash and just expect them to treat this like a Super Bowl type of game and for them to look totally different than they have the first couple of games, which is why Tennessee needs to be on their P's and Q's in this matchup to get the first win after their 8-game losing streak, to finally snap that. Funny enough, Georgia's not won 9 in a row, so this will be the 9th meeting between them with Tennessee on an 8-game losing streak. So we'll have so much more coming up on this matchup, what this means to the Tennessee players, the Neyland effect, and how the defense will look against the Georgia Bulldogs, especially in the middle of the field. So make sure you have your notifications turned on, subscribe if you haven't, and I will talk to you guys later this week.